Welcome to a new edition of Harness Central. I'm Harold Howe here with Scott Horner at Main Street Stables to talk about Split the House. Very nice win Saturday night, $200,000 New Jersey Classic. I've talked with you over the last year and a half about this horse, and it's interesting that, as I recall from the first conversation, the best way to describe your thoughts were there was a genuine fondness for this horse. And I don't hear that a lot. It's all about how much can he make and blah, blah, blah. So let's just go back to when you bought him from Fair Winds Farm for 60,000 and just, I mean, there's 1,100 other horses you could have bought. Why him?
Um, Good morning, Harold, and thanks for congratulating us. Um, Split the House was third on my list, which was a very short list. There were two Hanover breds by Some Beach who were first and second on my list. Both of those colts sold for more than I was willing to bid, much more, in fact, than I was willing to bid, not because they weren't necessarily worth the amount. It was just a function of my wallet. And so Split the House was third on the list. He was James Aka Friday's favorite. I think in part due to James having trained his dam.
That aside, though, you look at him today, I can't see how anyone would have disliked him.
No, but he was New Jersey bred, and I recognized at the time that his there wouldn't be actually a state program for him, given that he would be located here, and practically speaking, it would be very unlikely that we would race him in the few Jersey sire stakes that existed. When I did go and look at him, I liked what I saw. He is a February foal and accordingly was quite mature. He had good size. The only thing I could fault him on was that he had puffy knees, but he on palpating them, they didn't seem to bother him. So I bid on him, and quite frankly, I thought he'd go for a lot more, and I was willing to go a lot more than 60,000 for him. Partly because I wanted to buy one, and he was the only one I did buy that year. And I had struck out on miserably on my first two selections.
So you got him. He goes to Florida with Friday. I was down there for doing 2-year-old videos. He said I shouldn't say anything, but he said, God, I love this colt. And then some mishap happened.
Right. Well, he trained down like a prodigy. From his attitude, his smarts, his mouth, and the way he moved. He was a natural. But very smart. He wasn't aggressive. All you had to do was chirp to him, and he'd go. And he didn't. Nothing bothered him. And to work with him again, he was so smart. For example, when he'd lie down and on occasion maybe touch his hooves on the wall, a lot of horses would thrash being cast. This horse was so smart. As soon as his hooves would touch the wall, he'd roll over to get up. He just common sense.
Right. And the injury was?
The injury was a crack of the P1, which is a pastern. And when I reflected on it, it happened on, it was diagnosed on June 9th. He had trained on the Saturday in 2-2 at Classy Lane very easily. When I reflect on it, well, why would he do that? In the sense that he's a February foal, he looks so mature. There was never any suggestion that he had any soundness issues. He moved so well in every respect, and he was so smart. Why would this horse crack at P1 versus one that was not as well gated, that didn't move as well, that wasn't as smart, and there were others in the stable that fit those criteria, and yet they raced, and he didn't at 2.
A 2-year-old career obviously wasn't meant to be,
Right.
but he was diagnosed or given stall rest,
Right.
back to Florida the next
Right.
winter, and when I was down again in February, everything was ticking over okay, but fingers crossed.
Right. The crack in the P1 was such that the veterinarian couldn't put a screw in, which is often, or more often than not, what is done for a P1. The P1 crack was in a location that wouldn't hold the screw, so he was given 4 months off. We X-rayed periodically. The X-ray showed he was healing well, and then with 4 months off, James worked him hard last winter, and on that point, James is a fabulous trainer. When you actually consider the relatively few opportunities that he has had, his record is very impressive. From now, he had a good mentor in Stu Furlot, a very good mentor for whom James worked decades. But he trained His Majesty for us. He since going on his own, he's had Big Jim, Doonbeg, Demission Hanover, Shake That Junk, etc.
Yeah.
From very limited opportunity. He doesn't train 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 2-year-olds like a lot of the successful baby trainers train.
So you got him back to Canada here in late spring, and start him out from base 0. And it's just click, 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 click. Everything's looking great. He's winning. Not beating anybody yet, but that isn't the idea. And then up comes the North America Cup.
Right.
And I remember talking to you. You were very tippy about what you were going to do.
Right.
Because you'd been lectured by Stu for a lot years ago. It's about time and
Right.
waiting and so forth. But you did decide to go in.
We did, and in retrospect, we've been proven that, or it's been proven that we probably did make a mistake, and luckily it looks like we got away with the mistake. One of the things that I think isn't maybe mentioned as much as I think it matters is the psychology of a horse. They're not dumb. They have feelings. When they get beaten up, some of them, a lot of them, take it to heart. You can hurt their feelings, and that can impact on how they race afterward, and your program afterwards. Some of them need some psychological rehab to make them feel better again. But at the end of the day, it looks as though, notwithstanding that we made the mistake, he's going to make up for our error.
Right. There were no ill effects of not making the North America Cup final. He goes into the summertime series, does great, and then you head for New Jersey for the New Jersey Classic the other night, and he gives him a thrashing. So you must feel pretty good about him today.
We do feel very, very well about him. Coming back to the North America Cup, in the eliminations, he showed for the first time on the backstretch an aggressiveness, which I think cost him a couple of lengths. Going back to what I had said earlier, he's such a smart horse. I would never have thought that he would show that sort of aggressiveness. He's almost push button. When you speak to him, he goes. And because he has such a nice mouth, or up to that point it had such a nice mouth, if you hold on to him and take him back, he complies. But there, he showed that aggressiveness. So Friday made an equipment change by putting plugs in him, which helped them. The other thing was, for such a smart horse, it was very surprising to see him behave the way he behaved behind the gate. And it wasn't, and it isn't because he's afraid of the gate. He's not. But he's a very social horse. And so when a horse comes up beside him, going slow like that, he's not focusing on his job, and he wants to socialize. He wants to look at the other horse and visit with them, and he does it here.
I dated a girl like that many years ago.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
So, you know, he's to this point in time where now the question is, I guess, what's next?
Well, obviously subject to him maintaining his health. I think likely he'll be entered in the Battle of Brandywine. He's got the Simcoe. He's got Lexington, and he's got the Jug, and then following that, the Breeders' Crown.
The group of 3-year-olds he's going to face, the majority of the top level ones, have taken a few weeks off here to catch their breath after all of them had a pretty demanding 6 weeks now. So there's a little opportunity to jump in there, to grab some dough maybe, and then tackle them later on. What do you think of the crop overall as you view it?
I think Wiglet, Jiglet, and the Nova Scotia horse are
Waukeshashi, Hanover.
Correct. I think they're top horses, and there are probably 7 or 8 other ones who are very tough. Time will tell, and hopefully we can be competitive. Yeah. That's our objective.
Yeah. Toughness is something you're getting used to. You've also got a filly, This or That Hanover,
right,
who looks sensational. When I was down there in the winter, it looked even better coming up here in the early summer when she started out. And yet, at this point, I mean, she's finding this isn't an easy walk among these 2-year-old fillies. I mean, they take your breath away, this group in Ontario.
Right. So far, Harold, I agree with you. Again, time will tell. It's so early in the season for 2-year-olds. Later in August through October, I think there'll be some separation among the fillies and the colts. As you may recall, historically, when we get into September and October, quite a few fall away, and the field shortens up so that, for example, in the sire stakes, we go from 3 divisions to 2 to 1 for the last sire stake before the Gold Series.
But collectively, it looks like
it is
a
so
lot
far.
of depth.
Jimmy Takter said years ago that he thought fillies matured earlier than colts. I think he's right. And analogizing to the human context, I recall reading an article commenting that young girls in high school will normally perform better than boys, and then in the last year of high school, or the last couple of years of high school, the boys catch up. And that's in part because the girls start to pay attention to the boys, and the boys
very philosophical stuff.
And for whatever reason, the boys start to think about what they're going to do next.
That's all very deep, Scott. I've never had that before. But anyway, I'll think about it. Listen, as far as Split the House goes, congratulations on the win. And just looks like you're going to have some pretty interesting weeks ahead.
Regardless of what happens, Harold, he's a great big teddy bear. We love him.
Good stuff. Good luck ahead.
Thank you.
Harold Howe with Scott Horner giving you the Harness Racing Edge.